StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you're expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get the personal initiative that moves you, not them, not her, no, you, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one philosophy, one book, one show. This daily, yes, you heard me correctly, daily masterclass that is known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic, what black people could do with the energy of the social justice movement. So first of all, let's be clear. I've talked about this already in many episodes of this show. If you follow me on social media or you read my emails, which I'm assuming you probably do at least one of those other things aside from listening to this show, you know where I stand on certain issues when it comes to race, when it comes to this whole social justice movement, quote unquote. We got to put movement in quotation marks because a movement has to actually be, going somewhere and getting somewhere. I don't feel like this social justice movement is actually getting anywhere. It's drawing a lot of attention, but it's not actually getting to an outcome. So I want to propose here today because I'm the type of person, if I'm going to criticize something, if I want to say this is not working or this is not right or this could be done better, I'm going to tell you how it could be done better. I'm going to offer my own plan in exchange for the plan, or if you want to call it a plan. I think you would be overselling the social justice movement to call it a plan. But I'm going to offer a plan of what black people could do with the energy of what we got going on here today. And I'm talking about all this stuff when people talk about racial inequality and they're telling everybody to go vote for who I don't know, or when they're talking about white privilege, or when they're talking about systemic anything, oppression this, 400 years of that. What can we actually do with all this energy? Because there's plenty of energy. Energy is a good thing. Energy is the capacity to do work. Mechanically speaking, energy is a great thing. We need energy. It's 85% of the job. Now you actually have to direct the energy towards a strategy. So when I did a live stream, this is back in the summer of 2020, on the NBA's boycott, when they boycotted or walked out on a game after a black man had been shot by a police officer in Wisconsin, I noted that NBA players, while they do have every right to make noise about social justice and they have every right to make noise about whatever they want to make noise about, whether I or anyone else agrees with them or not, my criticism of them is that there is no plan in place to go behind all the attention that they created. And then there are media people, most of them very woke, most of them working for companies at which they would not be allowed to express a dissenting opinion even if they wanted to. They are celebrating what these athletes have done. Oh, look at the great strides these athletes have made, or this is going to go down in history. These people are going to be on the right side of history because they said this or they did this. And maybe they will go down in history and maybe it will be talked about, but to make it the right side of history, well, come on, that's a matter of opinion. But commentators when I started criticizing it, this is on a live stream where I was talking about it, some commentators said, well, Dre, what do you think people should do? So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to tell you what black people or black athletes or anybody who feels like they have a quote unquote platform, meaning you have people listening to you, whether it's 5 people or 5 million people, what you could do utilizing your platforms and also your human capital of knowledge, skills, connections, and expertise. What can you do with this energy and this attention that you're generating right now to actually create a positive outcome for black people and the world in general? Because I think, as they say, when the tide rises for one ship, it rises for all the ships out there. So let's get right into it. Point number 1. Today's topic, once again, is what black people could do with all the energy being generated, created, and paid attention to via the quote-unquote social justice movement. Point number 1, turn focus inward and forward. This is the first thing that focus needs to be, inward and forward. And the reason why I say inward and forward, because it's the exact opposite of where the focus is right now. Right now, when we talk about social justice, at least as of this recording, I'm recording this in early October 2020. So maybe something drastic has changed since the date that I'm recording this and when you're actually hearing it. But right now, the focus from black folks, at least the ones who have the quote unquote platform, focus is outward and backwards. Outward meaning, instead of black people looking at black people and saying, what can we do for ourselves to further our own cause? we are looking outside of ourselves and looking at what the government is doing, looking at what the police are doing, looking at what white people have that we don't have. We're looking at everything other than ourselves, and we're looking, instead of looking forward towards the future, what we can do for ourselves, we're looking backward at the past. We're saying, well, slavery happened, and oppression happened, and Jim Crow happened, and Black Wall Street got burned down, and this thing happened, and this person got killed, and this person got shot. We're looking backwards and we're looking outward. That's a problem. All right, so the first step is we have to change what we're even looking at, because as many personal development people talk about, I talk about this, a lot of people talk about this. Wherever you are looking, that's where you're going. Wherever your attention goes, energy flows. If your attention is looking backwards, you are going backwards. If you're looking at what happened in the past, you will live in the past. The problem with living in the past is that you can't change it. And you ever try to drive a car while looking in the rear view mirror? It's pretty dangerous, or you might end up dying, or you might not live to tell that story. Jewish people, Italian people, Latin people, Cuban people, none of these groups make as much noise about other groups as black people make about white people. Not even white people. The only group in America that makes the majority of the noise that they make is not about themselves, is black people. The only group in America that when they talk about what a certain group can do and is not talking about their own group, but rather they're talking about a different group, is black people. None of these other groups that I mentioned, Latins, Italians, Jewish people, or whatever group. It can be a religious group, a nationality, it can be a race, it can be a color. None of them talk about what everybody else is doing or what anyone else is doing other than their own group except black folks. Our focus is always outward, looking at what everybody else is doing. We are never we're never pointing the finger at ourselves. We're looking out the window instead of looking in the mirror. And when I say something like that, woke black people, of which there are many, some are listening to me right now, they reply to that with something like, they start throwing out these terms: oppression, systemic, racism, slavery. Let me give you a news flash, ladies and gentlemen, in case anybody didn't know. All right, slavery has been over for a long time. Yes, slavery has been over for a long time. If you didn't know, now you know. Okay? You were never a slave. Nobody who is alive right now, no matter what color they are, has ever been a slave owner or a slave master. So what I am beseeching you to do, I don't care what color you are, what group you are, you could be a very woke, liberal, white person who wants to put your Superman cape on and be Captain Save a Black person, and you want to argue with me that black people do have a right to talk about these things. I'm talking to you too, okay? Stop living in that past that you did not live through. You never lived in that past, so stop trying to relive it now because it's over. You cannot live in it. Stop rewatching that bad movie that you never even saw in the first place. So you're trying to replay a movie that you didn't even see the first time. How you going to replay something you didn't even play it the initial time? Stop living in that past, rewatching a bad movie that you were not present for when it first happened, unless, of course, you are aiming to repeat that movie. I mean, do you actually want to live that movie again? Because if you don't, then you should probably stop talking about it. Again, where attention goes, energy flows. Even if you believe in all the terrible things that have happened to blacks, even if you believe they did actually happen, I believe Jim Crow happened. I believe that there was a lot of racism going on in America at a certain point, and that there still is racism going on today in America. I've talked about this in episodes of this show. I said racism is legal, and in MasterClass number 1378, racism is legal, and there are many other truths that you should accept. Again, that's MasterClass number 1378. I recorded that before any of this social justice shit took place in the spring and summer of 2020. So I was way ahead on this topic, okay, just in case anybody's worried. All right, I didn't come into this, just start talking about this just because stuff popped off this summer and police this and Trump that and racism this and that and social justice. I've been talking about this, okay, just to make sure anybody's unclear to think I just showed up on the scene and started talking about this because I saw an opportunity in it. Or opportunity been there. All that being said, we're still on point number one here. Even if you believe in all the terrible things that happen to black people and you think they were terrible and you think they should never happen again, and you think that there are some people out there who may harbor thoughts of wanting to recreate that life and make it happen again, here's my question to you. Are you going to focus on that, or are you going to focus on moving forward? Because just in case you didn't know, you cannot look both forward and backward at the same time. You got to pick one. The NBA and NFL players and the influencers online or whoever you consider to be leaders of the black race. Again, you don't even have to be black to identify who you consider to be the leader based on whose message is getting amplified the most. They have a whole lot of influence. This is true. And right now, at least from what I've seen, they've been using that influence only to focus on negatives and focus on backward movement, or looking backward rather, instead of positive forward movement. Have police officers, specific police officers, not the whole police, not the police as a unit, but specific police officers. Have some of them done some bad things at times? Yes. Has some of it got caught on camera? Yes. Has some of it not been caught on camera that we won't really know about because we didn't see it? Yes, yes, and yes. Will a police officer do something that they should not do again sometime in the future? Maybe between the time I record this and the time you listen to it, will something have happened with a police officer dealing with an unarmed black suspect? Probably. Now, will we see it on video? Maybe. Now, will the same thing happen vice versa? Probably. Can we stop everything that is going on in our lives and focus on the past every time something like that happens? Sure, we can. We can stop everything and focus on the past every time something happens between a white police officer and a black suspect. We could do that if we want to. We could stop everything that we're doing, not go to work, walk off the set of our TV shows or whatever we want to do symbolically to prove our wokeness to the social media sheep. Sure. But when we're doing that, we are not able to move forward at the same time. So we have to choose. All right? There's a trade-off that needs to be made here. So if we want to focus on the past and not do things to move forward because something happened today and we want to harken back to what happened in the past, that's cool. You can do that. It is your right. Okay? I'm not condemning you for doing it if you choose to do so. It is 100% your right to do so. The challenge is you cannot move forward and create progress while you are focused on the past. So you must choose. What's the trade-off going to be? And while you're focused on the future, you cannot be stopping yourself every time something happens in the present that is reminding you or causing you to think about, or one of these race hustlers out here on social media tries to bring up the past and they have this fiery rhetoric that gets everybody all hot and bothered about systemic this and racial this and oppression that. All right, you got to choose. There is a trade-off. You want to focus on the future. You can't stop yourself and look back at the past every time you hear something or see something. And if you want to focus on the past, it is impossible for you to create progress and move forward. You can't do both at the same time. You must choose. This is a situation where it's not both, it is either or. Point number 2. Today's topic is what black people can do with the energy created through the social justice, quote unquote, movement. Point number 2, we need a system of relegation. Y'all know what relegation is. In professional sports, not in the United States, but outside of USA, overseas, in soccer leagues and basketball leagues. Those are 2 leagues for sure that I know this happens, but maybe it happens I know there are Americans who play overseas volleyball, there are maybe handball, there's hockey, but I know for sure this happens in basketball and in soccer leagues. And this is football outside of USA, they call football. Every season, what happens is, in many leagues, the worst teams in let's say you got the top league, league number 1 and league number 2, okay? Or let's say the A league and the B league. So the A league is the best league and the B league is the second best league. The worst teams in the A league, they get kicked out of the A league, and next year they get relegated to playing in the B league because they were the worst performers in the A league. And the best performers in the B league, they get to graduate from the B league up to competing in the A league. So let's just say the rule for a certain league might be the worst 2 teams in League A. Let's say there are 15 teams in League A. So the 2 teams ranked number 14 and number 15 in League A get kicked out of League A. Next year, they got to play in League B. And the best 2 teams in League B, teams number 1 and 2, the 2 teams that play for the championship, they graduate to playing now in League A the following season. And the next year, they do the same thing again. Whoever the worst 2 teams are get kicked out of A, and the best 2 teams from B replace them. And that happens every single time. That is the system of relegation. In certain leagues, in overseas sports, every year this happens. The worst of the group get relegated from their position to a lower position, and the best move up. Meaning this: energy can't go to everyone at all times, ladies and gentlemen. We can't give our energy to everybody. It has to go to those who are most effectively uplifting the community. Let me say it one more time. I want to make sure this one sinks in. We cannot stop everything that we're doing and give all of our energy to individuals, to the plight of any individual who has not, up to the point of whatever situation has caused our attention to go to that individual, if their track record does not show that they have been doing things to uplift and add on to the community, we cannot stop everything that we do to pay attention to that individual. Because everybody ain't the same. Everybody is not going to be treated equal. I see people walking around with t-shirts that say equality. Equality is a bullshit concept. Everybody is not equal. Everybody should not get the same amount of attention. When Kobe Bryant died, that was a bigger deal than when, I don't know, some guy who sat on the end of the bench in one of Kobe's 17 seasons in the NBA and he died. It's not going to be the same story as when Kobe died. Why? Because they had different levels of accomplishments. They had different lengths to their resumes. They did different things. That's just the game, ladies and gentlemen. It's just the way that it works. Everybody does not get equal treatment. And what I see happening in the black communities, we're giving a ton of energy to any individual who seems to have some plight that allows us to demonize the government or police or white people as a whole. And that's a challenge because not everybody in our community deserves the same amount of attention. This guy named Tony Kornheiser, white Jewish man. There was a book that I read written by Charles Barkley and Michael Wilbon, where Charles Barkley was talking about this very concept. And this book had to be about 15 years ago. And one of the things that Charles said was, in the black community, we tolerate the idiots. We tolerate people who are not helping the community, not lifting the community up, not setting a positive example, not doing anything to help anyone else in the community or help the community in general, doing nothing at all. But we tolerate these idiots and we allow them to stick around and pull down the average of our community. What's the law of association, ladies and gentlemen? You become the average of the people you spend the most time with. You become an average of the people you give attention to. You become an average of the people that you consider to be your equals. And Charles Barkley, that was outside of what Charles Barkley said. That was my point. But what Charles Barkley says, that he asked Tony Kornheiser what the Jewish community does when there's a Jewish idiot in the community, i.e., an individual who is not uplifting the community, who is actually bringing the community down, because we all know, ladies and gentlemen listening to me, we all know there's no neutral in the universe. You are either building or destroying. So Charles asked Tony Kornheiser, when there's an idiot in your community, what do you do with him? Tony Kornheiser said, we get rid of him. That was it. That was the whole answer. We get rid of the idiots in the community. In other words, now I'm out of the Charles Barkley paraphrasing here. This is me talking. When there's someone in the community who is destroying rather than building, someone who is not a positive influence, someone who is not doing anything to uplift anyone in or outside of the community, Jewish people get rid of that person. They do not tolerate fools in their community. They do not celebrate fools in their community. They may offer a slight defense, but they don't stop everything that they're doing to defend an idiot when the idiot gets in trouble. Why? Because Jewish people inherently understand. Maybe they consciously understand it. I don't know. I'm not Jewish. I'm not on the inside of that circle. But they understand on some level that everybody does not get equal attention. Everybody does not get equal resources. We can't stop everything that we're doing when something happens to an idiot. Now, if something happens to somebody who's actually helping us, all right, we do what we got to do for them. But something happens to an idiot, well, hey, they were an idiot. They brought it upon themselves. They probably had it come in one way or another. They don't invest in the idiots. They don't give their time to the idiots. If the idiot gets in trouble, well, the idiot got to deal with the trouble that they caused. They created in some way, shape, or form. They don't invest in the losers. And ladies and gentlemen, what y'all got to understand, life is, for the most part, not a zero-sum game. I made it very clear that we live in an abundance universe of abundance. Everybody can be successful. Everybody can create prosperity for themselves. But for whatever reason, some people don't. Some people don't want to win. Some people don't want to do the work. Some people do not want to be disciplined. Some people don't have the necessary resilience, persistence, and mental toughness. Some people do not have the initiative. Some people know everything that they need to know in order to create success for themselves and for others, but for whatever reason, they choose not to do so. And the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, you can't save everybody. All right, you ain't Jesus. All right, even Jesus couldn't save everybody. You can't save everybody. Some people just don't want to win, and it's not your responsibility to convince them to want something that they clearly do not want for themselves. We got to let the losers lose on their own. All right. Sometimes in life, if somebody's drowning, and Michael Jordan told this story. Many people don't know this story. Michael Jordan was a young kid. I'm thinking maybe 6 or 7 years old. He and one of his friends were swimming like in a creek or something like that, and his friend started to drown. and his friend was trying to save himself from drowning, and he grabbed onto Michael Jordan's arm or Michael's leg. This is 7 or 8 year old Michael Jordan. Grabs onto Michael's leg to try to save himself from drowning, and Michael had to kick his friend off of his own leg and let that friend drown, because if Michael had let that friend keep holding on to him, he would have drowned too. And his friend drowned, and Michael always had a big phobia when it came to water because of that, seeing his friend drown at such a young age. Now, what am I telling you a story about drowning for? Because sometimes in life, there are people in our community, the black community, who are drowning, not because they are unlucky, but because they have chosen to make bad decisions for whatever reason. We don't know why. As Jim Rohn once said, I wouldn't sign up for that class trying to figure out why people make bad decisions. They just chose to make some bad decisions. They are drowning. We can't go and try to save everybody from drowning, because usually what happens if you try to save a drowning person, all right, they have a death grip on you. You grab onto a drowning person, okay? They will do whatever they got to do to hold on to you to keep themselves from drowning, and in the process, you will drown with them. We can't save everybody. When I was growing up playing ball, I didn't get any basketball training. All right, nobody taught me how to play. There was no Instagram or YouTube for me to follow on my phone. We didn't have phones, not the way we got them now. The handful of coaches in my neighborhood, they could only focus on a few people. You know who they focused on? It was like 3 or 4 coaches in my neighborhood. It's about 100 kids who thought they could play ball. All right, young black boys think they could play basketball somewhere between the ages of 6 and 20. They all thought they could play ball. The coaches couldn't coach everybody. They couldn't give everybody individual attention. Couldn't even know everybody's name. You know who they focused on? Who they focused on? I don't even have to answer this question. Who did the coaches focus on, knowing what I just told you? That small piece of information. They focused on the few players who showed promise from an early age and who looked like they might go somewhere. All the rest of us, we were left to fend for ourselves. If you learn the game and get better, and you become one of the players and looks like you're going to be somebody, then we'll pay attention to you. But until or unless you become that type of player, we are completely ignoring you, don't even need to know your name. That was the game, ladies and gentlemen. That's the way it worked. That's the way it worked back then. That's the way it works in many communities to this very day. That's not the way it seems to be working in the black community. Coaches out there. We got any athletic coaches listening to this show? Do you recruit players who have no talent and hope to just make them good? You're just gonna ingest talent into them. You're just gonna get talent into them somehow, some way, because you're just that amazing of a coach. Or do you go and find people who have talent and integrate that talent with the system that you're running? Which one do you do? The former or the latter? Of course you do the latter. Black people, we need to do the same. We need to pay attention and give our energy to the talent, the people who are actually uplifting the community, and stop giving so much energy to people who are doing nothing to help the community out. Now, I want to be clear. So maybe somebody's listening to this right now and saying, Dre, so what is it that you're saying here, Dre? What are you saying? Because some of these people who have been in these situations with police, they had criminal records. They have been involved with certain types of people who are not living positive, uplifting lives. And then they get into situations, and these are the black people who are being noticed and recognized by the community. What are you saying? You saying people shouldn't have done that? You saying people shouldn't have paid attention to these individuals? What exactly are you saying here, Dre? What I'm saying is, as no disrespect to the families of those who have been slain, attacked, or injured in dealing with police, many of these people, the ones that we've heard about in the summer of 2020, what were they doing to uplift the community before they dealt with the police? Why were they dealing with the police in the first place? What was their track record in life before this fatal or fateful interaction with a police officer? What were they doing when they interacted with the police officer? What decisions had this person made up to this point in their lives? What had they done to contribute to the black cause or any community of any race up until the point they dealt with that police officer? If you can't name anything, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the system of relegation. What do Jewish people do with the idiots in the community? What do Latin people do with the idiots in the community? What do white people do with the idiots in their community? They relegate them. They don't kill them. They just relegate them. Like, okay, all right, you want to be an idiot. All right, we're not going to kill you. We're not going to hurt you, but we just not fucking with you. And if something happens to you, well, you chose to be an idiot. All right, we got plenty of examples of people doing things to build. You chose to destroy. All right, you made that choice. It's your life. We're not mad at you, but we also ain't dropping everything we're doing to come help you out. All right, that's the game, ladies and gentlemen. Those who have died or been injured at the hands of police in 2020, I am not saying that they needed to die or that they even deserved to die or be injured. At the same time, I am saying, I want to go on the record. Many of these people are not our best. They are not the builders of the community. They're not the builders. They're not the contributors. These are the destroyers. These are the people tearing the community down. What are they doing to help the community out? Absolutely nothing. If they hadn't gotten killed, if they hadn't dealt with the police that day, and let's say they had just gone on living their lives, what was their contribution to the community? What was their story? What had they done outside of getting into an interaction with a police officer that would cause any person of any race, anywhere in the world, in history, to ever honor that individual? What had they done? Name one thing one of these people had done that would cause us to honor them or put their name on something or name a street after them or make a hashtag after their name. Name one thing, just one. I'm giving you time to think about it. I'm not saying that these people should lose their lives. I'm not saying these people deserve to be injured. At the same time, I am saying we can't dedicate all our resources to people who are not uplifting the community in the first place. We can't dedicate our resources and our energies to people who weren't doing anything to help the black community while they were alive, but now that they're dead, just because a white person who had a badge did it, now all of a sudden they're a hero. That's bullshit. That's sending the community backwards. Again, to say nothing about that person, we're sending the community backwards when we are honoring the destructors of the community, but we are ignoring the people who are actually building the community. You can't save everybody. In that case, when we talk about saving everybody, ladies and gentlemen, life is a zero-sum game, meaning everybody, you can't do it. You can't save everyone. Some people are going to get saved and some people ain't going to get saved. So how do you decide who to save and who not to save? Look at the people who are building, save them, and look at the people who are destroying and let them fall. Let them do what they're going to do. You only got two hands. Point number 3. Today's topic is what black people can do with the energy of the social justice, quote unquote, movement. Point number 3, invest in human capital. What's human capital? The definition from Investopedia of human capital, listen up, quote, human capital is an intangible asset or quality not listed on a company's balance sheet. And each one of us is a company, side note. Continue my quote. It can be classified as the economic value of a worker's experience and skills. This includes assets like education, training, intelligence, skills, health, and other things employers value, such as loyalty and punctuality, close quote. Ladies and gentlemen, the uplifting of the black community in America has nothing to do with what white people are doing. The uplifting or the destruction, I should add, of the black community in America has absolutely nothing to do with what white people do or do not do. It is not about, the uplifting of the black community is not about avenging the past. It is not about screaming about reparations. It is not about white privilege, whatever you consider that to be. It is not about oppression. It is about us as black people building our own from the inside out. When I say building our own, I mean building our community, building our businesses, building ourselves as individual people from the inside out, meaning we focus on us first. And as we build ourselves internally as a group and individually, then we can focus on what's going on the outside. This is what black people were doing after slavery and before the civil rights movement. This is what black people were doing in America. Even while Jim Crow was going on, even when black people did not have full civil rights, black people were building up from the inside out before the civil rights movement. What happened during the civil rights movement, during the 1950s and 1960s, is that government programs were created by white people who appointed themselves saviors of black people that indirectly, this was not the direct goal, at least I don't think it was, it indirectly incentivized black people to stop focusing on building human capital. What do I mean by this? Not to get super political here because I'm not a political scholar, but these are some things that I do know. It's a president by the name of Lyndon Baines Johnson, 1960s. Don't know exactly what year it was he was inaugurated. But when Lyndon Baines Johnson came in, he said, listen, white people, we have done black people wrong. We need to do some things to balance things out. We can't just say to black people, hey, we did you wrong. We're going to stop doing you wrong now. Here, go to the starting line and race against these white people who have a 100, 200-year head start on you. We gotta do something better than that. This is what LBJ's, not LeBron James, but Lyndon B. Johnson's plan was. So he said we need to create these programs by us, these white people in the government, that will actually, quote unquote, help black people so that they get a little bit of a push from us so that they can be more equal to the white people out there. All right, that has not actually worked. You know why that doesn't work? Because when you try to force equality, when you try to force evenness in a race, and the person doesn't have, it's like if you took a person like me. I'm 180 pounds, give or take, depending on the day of the week, or depending on how I'm eating, how much cardio I'm doing, how much weight I'm lifting, right? And let's say you took 30 pounds of muscle and you just strategically packed it onto my body and said, Dre, go play basketball, go run 8 miles like you normally do. With that 30 pounds of extra muscle just strategically added to my body. I didn't actually train for the muscle. I did not build it over time. I didn't earn it in the weight room. You just added it to my body. And then you go tell me to go perform physically. What's going to happen? I'm probably going to get injured. Why? Because my body did not earn that muscle. My body did not strategically build that muscle. It's not distributed properly. It's not distributed naturally. I was basically handed this head start of muscle, but my body's not going to know what to do with it. I won't be able to perform with it. And I'm actually going to be worse with the muscle than I would have been had I just been asked to perform without it. So to make this a more direct example of what I'm talking about here, the welfare program was created in America by white government officials to help, quote unquote, help black people out, close quote. What did it do? Indirectly. Indirectly, what it did was it caused a whole lot of black families to break up or to never exist in the first place, because welfare only rewarded single parents who did not have both parents in the home. For the most part, single mothers who did not have a father in the home. They got money for free from the government if they were single. Therefore, no more black family. The destruction of the black family is one thing. If you talk to anyone who is a black person activist, I don't consider myself to be in that category. If you talk to anyone who is, they say the destruction of the nuclear family, which was actually on the mission statement page of the Black Lives Matter website, by the way. They have since scrubbed that note off of there, but everybody knows they took it off, was to destroy the nuclear family. Destruction of the nuclear family is one of the goals of BLM for all you Black Lives Matter supporters. The welfare helped destroy the nuclear family, again, indirectly. And what some have said, I haven't seen hard proof of this, but what some have said is that Lyndon Johnson's plan in creating these programs to help black people, or to quote, help, close quote, black people through these government programs, the whole point for him was not because he was just so altruistic, he wanted to help black people out. It was so because he connected these programs so strongly to the Democratic Party that it would keep black people voting Democrat forever. And guess what? God damn it, Lyndon Johnson was right. Here we are. Human capital, ladies and gentlemen, is a focus on skills, knowledge, and education. The more skills, knowledge, and education you have in a community, the more that community can create and contribute and do for self. As Malcolm X said, the black man in America will only do as well as other races of men when the black man starts doing for himself what other races are doing for themselves. Again, that's Malcolm X, for those of you who like to quote him. Maybe you should read his book. Black Lives Matter, I found, the movement itself, I'm not talking about the website, but the movement itself, I only hear from them when a white person is to be blamed. When there's a black person to blame, I don't hear anything from Black Lives Matter. And this is why I said we need to focus inward and forward, not outward and backward. All that being said, let's recap today's class, which is what black people could do with the energy of the quote-unquote social justice movement. Point number 1, turn focus inward and forward. All other groups of people, whether we're talking race, religion, nationality, color, creed, no group makes as much noise about other groups as black people make about white people. People reply to that, well, systemic oppression with racism, slavery, newsflash, all that stuff. Racism will always exist and ain't going away. Oppression, you can flip anything around and make it seem like oppression that you want. Slavery is over. You have never been a slave. Nobody you know has ever been a slave or a slave master. You can either focus forward or you can focus backward. You have a choice, but you must pick one. Point number 2, we need a system of relegation. We cannot drop everything like the boy who cried wolf to go save all the sheep every time something happens to a person who is at the lower rungs of our community. The lower rungs of our community is not about how much money you make or if you have the same privileges of other people or the same amount of talent as other people. It is the choices that you've made to either build or destroy the community. People who are destroying the community, not doing anything positive for the community. If they had not dealt with a police officer and had something fatal happen to them, their names would never get mentioned because they never did anything to help the community. We cannot stop what we're doing to honor those people, name streets after them, or treat them as if, or deify them as if they're some type of hero because they never did anything positive for the community while they were alive. And had they continued living, they still wouldn't have done anything for the community. Why are we honoring these people? We are the only group of people who do this. We honor people who are not doing anything to help the community. Tony Kornheiser, a white Jewish man, said, when there's an idiot in the Jewish community, we get rid of them. In the professional sports world, overseas, we relegate the bums. The teams that ain't doing anything good, we relegate them and we elevate the people who are helping. What are we doing as a community when we're elevating people who are doing nothing but destroying the community? Makes no sense to me. Point number 3, we must invest in human capital. It is an intangible asset or quality that is not listed on a balance sheet. This can be experience, it can be skills, education, training, intelligence, health, loyalty, punctuality, the intangibles. The uplifting of the black community has nothing to do with what white people are doing or saying. It is not about avenging the past. It's not about reparations. It's about building our own from the inside out. The challenge of building our own from the inside out is that this is a challenge of accountability and responsibility, and a lot of people don't want to have that conversation because it's much easier to point the finger at somebody else. Work on your game. Dre, all